Well, welcome to the Action World special program. We have Andrew Ye here. I met Andrew in another capacity back a few years ago in the UK. And like myself, Andrew is one of the organizers and spokesperson for this forum happening next Wednesday. The short form is called abc-hk.org, Assessing Business Risks in China and Hong Kong. How are you, Andrew? Your mic is off. Now it's on. How are you?
Hi, Ed. Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's a real pleasure to be here and a real pleasure to reconnect with you.
Yeah. Well, now we actually had two episodes, one with one of the spokesperson, Daniel, and just 2 days ago with Anne Lau, founder of Visual Arts Guild, who is also a co-organizer. You are one of the co-organizers of this event that will happen next Wednesday, and it's so happen it's the APEC Summit in San Francisco. Can you tell us a little bit about why we think of this idea of having this parallel conference, this one-day conference?
Sure. Well, the goal of the conference is really to help inform business leaders on the growing risks that are emerging from China and Hong Kong. Over the last few years, since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, we obviously have seen China closed off to business for much of that time. Now, COVID restrictions in China and Hong Kong have come to an end. There's a rush to go back to China, to go back and do business. However, what has also happened over that time is we have seen a real crackdown in Hong Kong, fundamentally changing the rule of law and rights and freedoms in the city. And we have seen an even further tightening of authoritarian rule on the mainland. Now, of course, that has an impact on human rights, on media freedoms, and on many other aspects which we are used to talking about with regards to China. But it also has an impact on businesses. It has an impact on the abilities of businesses to conduct due diligence or to fully realize what's happening on the ground. And so what we're trying to do with this conference is help business leaders understand that actually the politics of what is happening in China and Hong Kong cannot be divorced from the economic realities of doing business in China.
So the target audience, is it for anyone who attend the APEC Summit? Well, you might be able to actually lure some audience from the other side and just come to this parallel conference and tell them that actually you have to think twice before you invest money into either China or Hong Kong. Is that the purpose?
That is what one side of it is, helping business leaders understand the increased risks. But there is another side to this as well, which is, there are many ways of trying to shift the Chinese government's perspective on human rights and international law, and it's really important that those continue. However, I think it's also really important that the Chinese government sees that if it continues to undermine freedoms and the rule of law both in mainland China and also particularly in Hong Kong, that will have an impact on how the international community sees China and whether it is open for business or not.
Right. Now, I understand you read some Chinese characters. I'm showing a ticker here at the bottom of the screen. Some of them are very well-known names. Publisher Jimmy Lai and the senior executive team. Some of the politicians formerly from LegCo, the Legislative Council, and also district councillors. They are all being locked up for a long time. Jimmy Lai more than 1,000 days. During the one-day conference, is there any specific message that this group want to bring to those who attend this parallel meeting? That, hey, the other side is saying business as normal, and then the current chief executive says, 講好香港故事, tell a good Hong Kong story, right? But actually, what is more surreal is that there's a detainment of a lot of entrepreneurs and people who believe in freedom of expression and rule of law. So do you think we can bring a strong message for those who attend? I know it's a closed conference with 100 people, and people need to sign up. What's the end goal after this 3 sessions? And there are 9 speakers, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you raised a really good point, Ed, and thank you for all that you do to continue to raise the cases of those imprisoned in Hong Kong. I think there are many examples, but the most obvious example that springs to mind is that of Jimmy Lai, as you mentioned. Of course, Jimmy Lai was a brave and effective voice in support of democracy and in support of human rights. But first and foremost, he was a businessman. He was a businessman running a very successful media enterprise, and one which has now gone from being one of the most successful media businesses in Hong Kong to being forced to shut down.
Yep.
And so that is a warning to anyone conducting business in Hong Kong, but also, of course, in China, that if you cross the Chinese Communist Party's red lines, there will be consequences. And no matter how successful your business is, no matter how important it is to the economy, how popular it is with people, it can be brought down. And that should be really ringing warning bells for the business community. And we've not seen the end of it yet in Hong Kong. I mean, they are now discussing, the Hong Kong authorities are discussing bringing in new Article 23 national security legislation, which could see further controls on the internet, further restrictions on the media space, all of which has direct impact through to the media environment, to the information space that businesses can access. So there are even more worrying signs ahead. So as much as the Hong Kong government wants people to tell the good Hong Kong story, the reality is it's a very frightening time for businesses in the city.
You have spent quite a bit of time studying the different authoritarian regimes, and I still recall that back almost 2 years ago, when I tried to organize a global prayer movement for Hong Kong, we asked for petitions from different Christian leaders to sign a letter to Carrie Lam, asking her to release Jimmy Lai and all the political prisoners. Now, that was 2 years ago. And fast forward to the present time, seems like this Li Ka-chiu, it's even worse in terms of control, and also with his lieutenant, it's Chris Tang, right? The security chief. Seems like it's more sort of an iron fist policy towards Hong Kongers. Now with Xi Jinping and also President Biden, it's heard that they might meet at the APEC summit. Do you think there's a chance that there could be some, like under the table deal or private talk to talk about the Hong Kong situation, some sort of political prisoner swap? Do you think that might happen?
I don't want to speculate. I mean, these things are certainly never impossible. As we saw recently with the case of the two Michaels, returned to Canada, we certainly shouldn't give up hope, and certainly shouldn't keep on trying for the release of these political prisoners. I think, but what we can also learn from the case of the two Michaels is that these issues can go on for a very long time, and China is well versed in hostage diplomacy. It understands the chilling effect that hostage diplomacy has on particularly the Chinese and Hong Kong diaspora abroad. It strikes fear, it forces self-censorship, and of course also has an impact back home. So while I hope that could be the case, I struggle to see it aligning with the increased control and increased fear that the Chinese Communist Party is trying to achieve, both in China and Hong Kong, but also with the diaspora around the world.
Right. Well, in closing, maybe let's focus on the organization that you represent, CSRI. Can you tell us a little bit more about this setup?
Yeah, I would love to. So the China Strategic Risk Institute is a new global think tank based in London. We launched in May this year. And our goal is to identify and analyze the key strategic risks posed by the rise of China across security, economics, and technology. Our goal is to help policymakers understand how to de-risk their relationship with China. We want to see an informed and balanced and nuanced approach to China that takes into account what China's growing economic and technological power means for democratic states, both in terms of their own security, but also in terms of their strategic autonomy. So, for example, over the next few weeks, we'll be releasing a paper looking into Europe's solar panel supply chain, which is deeply dependent on Chinese production, which then poses a major energy security risk because China has the capacity to weaponize that supply chain if it so desires. So we are informing policymakers, but also, as I say, informing businesses on how China's rise is impacting risk in all sectors.
CSRI's focus is China as a whole, not like a Hong Kong centric, right? So it's the more a bigger picture.
Yeah, that's right. It's the bigger picture. Obviously, Hong Kong is a hugely important part of our work. As I say, we've seen the legal and political environment in Hong Kong change so rapidly, and it will continue to change. So, analyzing the impact of those changes on businesses, but also on human rights and the rule of law, will be a key part of that as well.
Well, I have seen quite a few people who listen to our interviews or through the online announcements. Actually, quite a few have already signed up. We have more than 100 seats on site. So those who want to register is first come, first serve. Any last word, Andrew, before we close this short interview?
No. Thank you, Ed, for giving your support to this important conference. I really look forward to joining with you there. And yeah, I think encourage the followers of this channel to continue to keep an eye on developments in Hong Kong and continue to advocate for policymakers and businesses around the world to really understand what is happening in China and Hong Kong and how it impacts all of us across the world.
Right. And for those who still want to sign up, just abc-hk.org. And
that's right.
And there's free lunch too, right? Free lunch.
Yes. Yeah. Never say no to a free lunch.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Especially in San Francisco. I hear it's quite expensive there.
Right. I heard it's $80 for chicken wrap and a coffee. That's how much the hotel charges. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe we can negotiate a better deal.
We'll see.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ed. Take care. Bye-bye.